Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie.
A lot of years ago, we wanted to do a trip around the world, and that was kind of my dream. And a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, let's do this backpacking trip for a year, actually." And I said, "No, I can't afford it. Like, I can do that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I have a job, I have a condo. Like, I can do it." And he's like, "I am poor, and I know I can do it. I am sure you can do it too."
Oh, wow.
And that like stuck with me, and I just like started thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And then I'm like, you know what? He's right. Like, we can figure it out. Like, we can rent the condo, we can put our stuff in a storage, we can take a leave of absence from work, we can save money. And so then I started the process of convincing my husband, because he was like totally like, "Are you crazy? Are you crazy?" But like, it took a year of like, that would be awesome. We could go to this place where you can surf, because that's what he loves, surfing. And then once he realized, "Oh, we can go to Australia and I can surf there," I'm like, he was all on board. And so we kind of had to put it into hold, but we eventually did it. We didn't do it for a year, but we eventually took a trip for 6 months, and we went backpacking through Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. And it was all before having kids, and we were able to, backpack, and it was an amazing experience that now I look back and I was like, how did I do that? And it was all because somebody planted this idea, and then I kind of like kept going at it, like, how can I make this happen? And even though we put it on pause, then when the time came, I was like, "Ryan, we do this trip now or we will never do it." And so we kind of like, "Okay, let's do it." And a month later, I think we were on a trip for 6. It started with a 4-month trip, and then we extended to 6. But it was an amazing experience. So anything that you want to get done, you just need to like put it on paper and start looking for ways to get it, to make it happen.
Yeah. So there's two things that I really like with what you said. The first one is that, it's, and I want to say that it's Kiyosaki that talks about it too, just kind of that mindset of not, I don't have the money to make it happen, but how do I make this happen? What income stream do I need to pull in? What do I need to make happen for me to get to do this? Yeah. And then the other thing too was that you said, put it on paper. So your subconscious mind doesn't differentiate between like what's a real thought, like what's really happening and you're thinking about it, and what's a future thought that you're thinking of, or something that you're envisioning in your mind that hasn't happened yet that you want it to happen. And your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between the two. So that's why they say, if you will envision what you want each and every day, say it, write it down, look at it, whatever you have to do, that your mind believes it's already the truth and it's already reality. And so it starts making it happen.
Yes. So. And I do believe, and I have to work on that more, even though I know that it works because I've had it done. I've done it before, but, I still, it's kind of like for moments, I'm like, I don't believe it. Like sometimes we have those limiting beliefs that we gotta kind of move away and keep going. I am okay with having fear. I think it's normal to be fearful when you start something new and you don't know what you're doing. Like, it's okay to have fear, but I think the important thing is not to stay there on the fence of fear, but to just cross it and see what's gonna happen. Like how, just keep going and pass the fear and try, like what could be the worst thing that happens? Like, if you are scared of asking for a raise at work, what's the worst thing that could happen? They're going to say no. And then you're back where you started. So nothing else. You're not going to get fired because you asked for a raise. Nobody's going to be looking at you like, oh my gosh, you asked for a raise. So it's just, you just need to do it and think about what's the worst case scenario. Like nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's that's kind of where we were at with me too, is like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I have to go back and get a job. Now it's easier for me. My husband he's a chemical engineer. So his salary is a little bit more important.
Yeah,
So it's not the same. And he enjoys his work. But for me, it really was. It was like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? Oh, I have to go back and get a job. So it
absolutely.
wasn't as big of a hurdle for me. The freedom that we've gotten from investing in real estate has been really huge. And even with everything that's going on with COVID, a couple of our distributions were put on hold, but one of them is starting back this month. And so we've only got one that's still on hold, which is really, that's kind of a testament to the people that underwrote it and the operating team. And I mean, that makes me really proud that we got in with the groups that we got in with, because they're top notch.
Absolutely. And that's very important, I think, for people that are starting to invest, to really calculate the numbers and make sure that they work and do stress testing. How long can you survive with this property? You know, if you have no rents, how long can you hold up that mortgage you were mentioning before? How, you know, you had to pay for 2 houses for 6 months. So, you know, you have to, when you do your analysis, make sure that you include the insurance, and the taxes are going to go up, and maintenance and reserves, and all those capex projects that you're going to have, and the renovations, because you know right now we're living in a very uncertain time. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, so it's very important, especially right now, that you are underwriting and you're looking at your deals with a little bit of caution, and you're not going to be able to raise rents as easy as it was a couple of years ago, where you acquire the property and you were raising the rents the next month. I think right now it's an iffy time. Like a lot of states, even Florida, we still have the no evictions, and so you know it's not like you can, you know, you're not going to be able to flip the properties as fast as it was happening before. So you know, just be cautious, and you know there is a lot of calculators that you can use. There's one on my website if you are interested, your audience is interested, is talieinvestments.com, and they can download it for free, and that's what I use myself, and I created from different calculators that I used, and I kind of modify it the way I use it. And it, you know, every deal that I look at, I go through my calculator to make sure that that the numbers make sense. And once you arrive to the numbers that make sense to you, stick to your numbers, because sometimes we get really excited about this property and we really want it, and what if we just deduct a little bit of the vacancy, or if we don't put some reserves there, and the deal is going to make sense, and then we can get into trouble, right? Like I learned, you know, with every property that I acquired, I learned a lesson. And one of my duplexes that I bought, you know, the previous properties, they didn't have a big bump on the taxes, but this third one, I think at that time the economy was going really well, and the county raised the taxes a lot, and so my calculation of the taxes was not near what they started charging. So the first year it was all fun, and then the next year the taxes went up a lot, and I was like, ooh, I was barely, you know, the good thing it was I was still cash flowing, but not, you know, to the rate that I was that I planned to. And you know, the first years you always spend money on renovations and stuff, so you know I had a little bit of debt from that. And I realized that I had to underwrite with the worst case scenario for taxes. And if it wasn't as bad, then I had extra money in cash flow, but at least my numbers work with the worst case scenario for the taxes. That's just one example on how you need to really look at the numbers, because, you know, it could have been worse where the property didn't cash flow, and then I was in trouble because I had to put money out of my pocket to continue. But you know, those, you know, every time that you acquire something new, you learn something new. So just, you know, keep learning and keep going and learn from your mistakes. You know, like if you make a mistake, then make sure that the next time don't do the same mistake, right?
Yeah, well, that's like, we're kind of sitting there, you know, we have the 3 single family homes, and now we're kind of like, we were totally anti single family home. We were like, we are never going to do another single family home ever. And then recently we've kind of been, when we take walks around our neighborhood, we're like, that house they haven't mowed their lawn in like a month and a half. I wonder if somebody actually lives there. And then we're like, maybe we should contact the owner and see if they'd be interested in doing a sub too. But then we're just like, wait a second, why are we looking at single family homes again? But like when we first started out, we would just sit down, and we were young. I mean, we're late 20s, 26, 27. And we would look at it and just be like, okay, well, we can rent it for this amount. The mortgage is going to be this amount. We'll be fine. Not so fine. I feel like if we had put more forethought into having 6 months of reserves and having all of those things in line, it would have been much safer. But like Jason's dad didn't tell him that. My grandparents didn't tell me that. My grandparents were in real estate too. And nobody ever told us that. So I assume that when you've been in it so long, you forget those little pointers, like, hey, have some reserves built up.
Yeah.
So when we started out, we didn't have any. We just said,
yeah, and I think sometimes you are so excited to start that you don't, like, you start reading like a book, the first chapter, then you start buying instead of finishing the book and then start buying. So, sometimes it's the excitement of starting, but sometimes also you don't learn from other people's experiences, right? As much as you learn from your own experiences. So it would be a perfect world if we can all learn from other people's experiences. The same happened to me when we bought a condo. Our first property we ever bought was a condo. We learned the hard way. But you live and you learn. You just gotta take those lessons and don't do it again.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway we had was that we went ahead and made sure that there was a separate account. And so that, all of the rent money comes in and goes into that account. And that account auto drafts all of the mortgages, but we don't get into that account.
Right.
That account just sits there. And I think that the other thing too is, yes, it's nice to cash flow, but that at the end of the day for us, especially with the single family homes and some of the smaller stuff we have, is those are buy and hold properties. It's not so much that we're making a whole bunch of monthly income. It's that at the end of the day, somebody else bought us those assets.
Absolutely.
And I think that people fail to see the long-term aspect of investing in real estate, especially if you're doing stuff on your own in your personal portfolio, because I think that our personal portfolios tend to be more on the buy and hold side. Whereas when we're investing passively or in other people's deals, it's more of that like 5 to 7 or even 10-year turn.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. And it's nice to buy a property that cash flows, but at the end of the day, the wealth creation is with the property, holding it for a long time and being able to cash out, in 5 years and take your investment out of it. And that has been my strategy. So you buy the property, even if you buy it cash, you improve it, you raise the rents, and then you take that money out, and then you buy the next one. And then by the time that you take that money out, that property is basically paying by itself. It's an infinite return because you have no money in. You bought it for 100, and then you do a cash out 3 years later, the property is worth 200, and then you get all those 100,000 that you put in out. Now that property is paying by itself. So you have no money in the deal. And in 30 years, it's going to be yours, and it's going to be valued at much more probably also. So you're getting the cash flow monthly. That's like, the extra, the tip that, it helps. Absolutely. And some people, like I invest in Florida to buy and hold, but I invest in Ohio for cash flow because I want that. My goal right now is to replace my income. Yeah. So, in other parts of the country, the cash flow is much better, but then you don't have the appreciation that we have here in Florida.
Our passive investments are all over the cash flow, but the stuff that we have buy and hold, absolutely. And our very first single family home, we actually did a cash out refi on it. And that was how we bought the first house here in Wichita Falls. And now we have 2. But it's the cash out refi is a really neat option. People don't always understand how it works. I try and tell people, they're like, oh, wow, I get all my equity. I'm like, no, it's an investment property. You're going to get like 70, 75%.
And right
And
now with COVID, you probably get 65. So
yeah,
it's hard. Right now, it's a hard time to cash out refi. But if you can hold it for a little bit longer, and then that's going to be an option. You can do it at a lower rate right now, or you could also do a HELOC. You can do a HELOC on your primary home. I know that there is banks that do HELOCs on rentals, which is something I
really.
haven't done yet. Yes. So I am investigating that option. I am not sure if it's on rentals or on secondary homes, but I am looking for that information. That's one of the things that I want to do on one of the properties, take the money out through a HELOC to keep that money working. And remember, you're going to be paying interest on this money, so you want to keep it working. You don't want to take it out and then put it in the bank.
Yeah, no, we've actually we've done loans on my husband's I don't know if it's an IRA or 401, but from his work, we've taken loans on that to be able to purchase properties too. So, and we've also we started up with the infinite banking concept, where you've got that whole life policy that you can use to invest in real estate. I mean, there's just I I have learned so much in like the last 2 years that it's just mind boggling. Like one of the girls that helps us with the kids, I took her home yesterday and she started asking me these questions. She was like, how did you get involved in it? And, how did you learn all about it? I'm like, well, you don't learn this stuff in school.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of sharing with her and she was like, wow, that's so interesting. And I was like, well, if you ever want to do it, let me know and we'll step you through
Well,
it.
right there you have your next assistant, that she can work for you and learn, and then she can do it on her own.
It's really just mind boggling how little you learn about this stuff. But it's kind of like, I guess, learning a foreign language. They say the best way to learn a foreign language is immersion. Well,
And how I actually got started into this, financial independence concept. There was this book, I think I got it in Costco. It was Suze Orman,
oh,
and
Susie
it
Orman,
was,
yeah.
yeah, women's, I think the book was Women and Money. And it was like a little small book, and it was kind of like a workbook because it had stuff where you would fill out stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I always hated reading. Like throughout my life, reading was not something that I liked doing. But that book, for some reason, I read it front to back, and I fill out everything on it. And at that time, I wasn't even thinking about real estate. It was just like getting my finances in order, like, buy life insurance, and have a savings account, and contribute more to your 401k, and all these things that I kind of learned, and they got stuck in my mind. And then later, years later, when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was like, like, it makes sense. This all makes sense, and I can get the wealth building through real estate and the tax benefits as well.
Yeah, it's those aha moments. And
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, oh, why don't they teach this in school?
Right. And I try to teach it to my kids. Like, sometimes I have to go to the properties to pick up rent or to whatever, something. And she's like, I hate going there. I'm like, do you like the vacation we had? And she's like, yeah, well, when I get money from there, we can pay for that vacation. And she's like, okay. Like, I'm trying to get her to understand that all the extra stuff that we get to do, part of it is because of the real estate that we own.
Yeah, well, my husband, we've got our two youngest are 3 and 5, and my husband put them in the Jeep because the Jeep was kind of one of our toys that we got because we have real estate. Because it's literally a 2-door Jeep. I mean, and we've got 4 kids. We don't even all fit in it. But, so he had our 2 littlest in the back of the Jeep, and in the back seat, not the back. And he was taking them to the houses, and the 5-year-old was like, wait, is this how we have money? Because he was just kind of explaining that, these are our houses, but people live here. Other people live here, and they pay us money to live here. And so it was just, she's only 5, and for her to still be able to make that connection was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think I get my daughter to count coins from the coin laundry. And then she can take a couple of dollars out of it, because I want to get her into it's so funny because my mom, she didn't want me to help her with stuff like that. My family in Peru owns cinemas, and then at the end of the night, they had to count the money and deposit it the next day in the bank. And I always wanted to count the money with her, and she would never let me do it. Probably because I was gonna miscount or something. But I actually want my kids to see all that and to realize and get connected and realize that they can go to college if they want, but they can also have a career in other things, if they know what they are doing, and if they follow a path to other careers. Doesn't have to be necessarily just a college education. Like, that's one thing my mom was like, you can do whatever you want, but first you get a college degree. And
Yeah.
I was thinking the same way up to a couple of years ago when college education got way too expensive for what you get, for what you can make. And it just kind of I still would love for them to get a college education, but I'm not said that they have to, only if they want to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's another conversation my husband and I have, is that it's, yes, the college education is important. Like, it's that piece of paper means that you can set a goal and achieve a goal. But when you go to school, they're teaching you how to work for somebody else.
Yes.
Well, we don't want to make somebody else rich. We want to make ourselves rich. I mean, as selfish as that sounds,
and
we
also
want to do it
they
for
also
ourselves.
get in a lot of schools, they get a lot of socialist thoughts, like everybody, doesn't matter what you do, everybody deserves the same. And I want them to be more business oriented. And the way I think I was brought up, like, the harder you work, the more you're gonna get in life. And now we have this, like, everybody, it doesn't matter, everybody gets a trophy. It doesn't matter if you win or you lose, you get a trophy.
Yeah.
And I don't like that, because in real life, doesn't work that way. If you
Not
work
at all.
hard, and if you show up, and if you do your homework, then you are going to get places. It's not it's not that way in real life. So um, they will decide when they get to that age. I mean, I believe that the college education definitely you know it helps, but I don't think it's the only answer.